We are Smooth Jazz Notes, and we are here with Art Good at the Jazztrax Festival on Catalina Island. Art, in 1981, you were the program director of KIFM when you started a new nightly one-hour program called Lights Out San Diego. This show is credited as being the beginning of the genre we know today as smooth jazz. How did you become exposed to this new type of music?
Well, you won't believe the answer. On a Thursday afternoon, it was actually March of 1982, and the general manager of KIFM, I was the program director, and we were doing soft rock, soft mellow rock, and the general manager and I had lunch, and he said, "Have you ever thought about doing a late night jazz show?" And I said, "Yeah." When I lived in Portland just before I moved down here from Portland, Oregon, they had a late night show called Lights Out, just Lights Out. There was Lights Out Portland. I said, "Yeah, I kind of remember that." I said, "Do you want me to start one?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "When would you like me to start it?" He said, "Tonight." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about jazz." So I said, "Let me start it Monday, so I've got the weekend to figure out what to play." And when you're in radio, you get sent everything. In those days, you got sent vinyl album after vinyl album, stuff that you would never play. And you just stack it in the wall. It makes you look like you got all kinds of music, even though half of it's not worth anything. And I just went through and started going, "Oh, Grover Washington Jr., I remember him because he had a crossover hit in 1980. And he said, "John Clemmer, yeah, he had a big album back in 75. And Chuck Mangione, yeah, Feels So Good. And David Sanborn, I don't know who that is, put it back in." So I was pulling out people I knew who'd had some kind of crossover impact. And then obviously I took it from there and said, that's why it wasn't traditional jazz. I didn't know traditional jazz. I didn't like traditional jazz. I was picking contemporary jazz from a perspective of a soft rock programmer. So that's where it evolved from.
Well, and then 23 years ago, you started the Catalina Island Jazztrax Festival. How did the idea for this festival come about?
I helped create Humphrey's Concerts by the Bay series in San Diego because at the same time Lights Out San Diego was going on the air, Humphreys wanted to start an outdoor concert series. So I was instrumental in creating the Humphrey series, but making no money for it. So after a few years you go, I'm making them a lot of money. Maybe I should do something on my own. And I had started the Jazztrax syndicated radio show, and at the same time KIFM sent the same general manager I referred to a few minutes ago, whose name is Bruce Walton, who happens to be the older brother of Bill Walton and the uncle of Luke Walton of the LA Lakers. He said, "We need to do a promotion of some kind. Why don't you go over to Catalina Island?" This was actually 1982. And so we did a promotion. I came over, first time I'd ever come here, and it was an incredible promotion. I saw how interested the audience was in San Diego for coming to this island. And then I decided to do my 30th birthday party here in January of 1984. And then I did my second annual 30th birthday party in January of 85, my third annual 30th birthday party, 86, and my fourth annual 30th birthday. We never changed it from the 30th birthday party. But I never came into the casino. I mean, we were young, we were kind of a little crazy. We had 30 or 40 of my best friends here. We knew this building was sitting here, but that's what happens. A lot of people see this building here, they never come inside. I talked them into giving me a tour, a private tour, January 12th, 1987, and I walked up the ramps, and as soon as I walked into this ballroom with the perspective of what I was doing with Humphreys in San Diego, I said, "Jazz Festival." And by that October, we started it.
What is your favorite memory of the Jazztrax Festival?
Every year when the festival's over, I haven't gotten through it.
What's your worst memory?
That list is pretty long, but the very first year, you have no idea what you're doing. And I think this is true of a lot of businesses in any form. People jump off the deep end, they're young, they would never do it later in life. I would never do it now, but you jump off the deep end and you have no idea what you're doing. You start booking these bands and you're paying far too much, and they're taking you for far too much money. And we got to the event in that October 1987. I don't even remember how I pulled it off, because afterwards I was broke. And we didn't have Earl Clue's money. I was about $12,500 short. And the William Morris agency, somebody from that agency, and they're all different people now, 23 years later, they came up to me last night and said, "Hey, we're from the William Morris agency." And I just started to shake. But of course, now everything's great, and I'm a reputable promoter, but at that point in time, I was the first timer, and they pulled me backstage, and they yelled and screamed at me for an hour, and then the sheriff was called, and somehow we got Earl on stage. I never saw the show. I walked out, and I had to deal with them still screaming at me, you don't have the last $12,500. So I never heard a note of the Earl Klugh concert in 1987, so when I booked him for last weekend, I told everybody to stay away from me because I wanted to see the show for the first time.
Is there an artist you would like to hire but have yet
George
to?
Benson. George Benson. I ask for him every year. At one point in time, he was affordable. Then he became unaffordable. I'm trying to get him to be affordable again. You can't spend too much money. This is a 1,500-seat ballroom, and except for during the recession where we're knocked down a bit in attendance, you always sell to within 200 or 300 or 400 seats of a sellout. And so if you pay a guy $25,000 more than you need to, you've just given the money away because you don't have enough seats to make it worth it. But every year, I've already asked for him for 2010. And Basha, I'd like to have Basha, even though she's not getting much attention these days. I think she would be fabulous in this ballroom.
She just has a new CD out.
Yeah, and it's not doing much.
No.
So,
You have launched so many careers. Which ones are you the most proud?
well, Mindy Abaird probably tops the list, in part because she's been a friend. I mean, I knew her as a human being before she became anything. Jesse Cook, who will be here tonight. I'd say those are the top, but it's this weekend. It's fun because of the economy, and we went through a span of 4 or 5 months earlier this year where ticket sales were just in the tank, and you're sitting there going, okay, is this it? And they eventually stabilized. Didn't make up for what we'd lost during those 4 or 5 months, but the decision was made to fill the last 5 or 6 slots instead of having a couple slots or 1 slot per weekend where I book somebody nobody knows. I filled about 6 slots that way. And I went looking, and usually these people come to me. That's I get credit for it, but they usually come to me. I took a phone call, except Mindy. Mindy, I had actually known for years, and she'd ask me about how to make it and blah, blah, blah. But usually I get a phone call. I got a phone call from Jessie J's manager 4 years ago, a year and a half before she broke, and I said, yeah, sounds good. I didn't make the phone call. They call me. But in this case, I started looking, and I came up with about 6 people that nobody knew. And 2 of the 6 had performed already, and they were stellar performances.
Fabulous.
And you sit back and go, like that again.
Fabulous.
I mean, they're the ones performing.
Yes.
I just give them the chance, but...
Everyone in the audience was very impressed last night with the show. They both put on a fabulous show, both Philip Martin and Tim Bowman.
Philip Martin was the one I was hoping would surprise everybody, and I wasn't sure. I had never seen him play before.
Tim Bowman's son was a real treat. Very talented young man, beautiful singing voice.
He may headline here someday.
He says he says he's in pharmacy school. He'll have a second career to fall back on that might be even more successful than pharmacy school. So what's new for this year?
For this year, Jazztrax Sunday morning golf. We're just orchestrating people to sign up. We have one smooth jazz star that's participating. I say that loosely because Paul Brown, who was our guest golfer last week and is a good golfer, Greg Adams, who's doing the second 2, is only going to putt because he can't drive a golf ball. But I mean, it's part of the island. There's so many aspects to the island and the casino. Here's a golf course that was historic. All the Hollywood stars. Howard Hughes used to come over and play with Katharine Hepburn here. In fact, it was mentioned in the movie, the Howard Hughes, the more recent one, the one that was about Howard Hughes, that starred the actor that was in Titanic. It was mentioned that he was playing the part of Howard Hughes, and he goes, "Let's go over to Catalina tomorrow and play golf." So.